Hi, I'm Chris, welcome back to FRAG-MENTAL, thanks for joining me. It's that time of year again, the votes are in, and here is what the public voted as the best men's fragrances of 2025. Every year, at this time of year, the popular website fragrantica has an awards ceremony. There are various categories of awards that fragrantica readers or members of the public can vote on. I always like to look at these awards with interest because I think it gives us a good feeling of what's popular out there, what's trending, what people are liking. So my aim with these videos is a couple of things. It's to give you guys an indication of what is winning these awards and what fragrances you might want to start checking out if you haven't already, but also for my own interest and maybe for yours, I like to just give my opinion on what's in this list and whether I think it should be there or it shouldn't be there. Also, how many of them do I own and how many of them do you own? Let's find out. One thing I should say is that when fragrantica do these awards for 2025, it actually includes fragrances that were released in 2024. So these are the best fragrances of the last couple of years. The fragrance that was voted as the 10th best fragrance of 2025 is Emporio Armani's Stronger With You Parfum. A lot of the usual suspects in terms of its notes. There's pink pepper, mandarin, lavender, sage, cinnamon, chestnut, vanilla and leather. As you would expect from the name, this certainly smells like a Stronger With You fragrance. I'm not sure that it earns the name parfum, although what does that even mean these days? But I would want a parfum fragrance to be a bit darker, stronger, richer, perhaps a little more mature. This fragrance was a bit of a strange release because I would have thought that the parfum version of Stronger With You would have been the one to rule them all. This would have been the big boy. This would have been the standout in the whole line of Stronger With You fragrances. In fact, it isn't. It is quite far down the list of which ones I think are the best. I think Absolutely and Intensely are better than this one because they've got a bit more character, they're a bit more distinctive, they're a bit more interesting. Also, Sandalwood and Amber, two other recent ones, Tobacco, I think they're all better than this. It is really nice, but I would definitely have put Sandalwood at number 10 rather than this one. At number 9, we've got a pretty interesting entry here because this is from one of my favorite niche brands. They do booze in their fragrances so well. At number 9, it's Angel Share Paradis from Kilian. I don't have that one, I have smelled it. So for the bottle of this, I'm going to show you the original Angel Share. Paradis looks very similar to this, although the cap is wooden. It also smells pretty similar with the addition of a raspberry note. I adore Angel Share. It's an amazing fragrance. It's strong, it's rich, it's loud. It is really well done. The cognac is mwah, chef's kiss. The dried fruits in here, it is just a delightful fragrance. It is a unisex fragrance though, even though I think men could easily wear this. But interestingly, Paradis, the one that's actually in this list at number 9, I think the raspberry note makes it a little more feminine. I think that one does just tip over into leaning more in the feminine direction. So interesting that that is in a list of men's fragrances, but hey, men could still wear it, no problem. I would happily wear it. I haven't bought Paradis because I smelled it in store and whilst I really enjoyed it, I still didn't like it as much as this one. The fragrance at number 8, I don't have because I don't have any from this brand actually. The brand is Afnan. The fragrance is Supremacy Collector's Edition. It's got pineapple and apple, so there's definitely a fruitiness to the scent. There's some white florals, there's musks, there's oak moss. This is Afnan's interpretation of the DNA that is Creed's Absolu AVENTUS. I haven't actually smelled this one myself, so I can't tell you how close it is to Absolu AVENTUS, but I can tell you it is a whole lot cheaper, like a lot cheaper. Creed fragrances are very pricey. Just going through some of the comments on fragrantica, people are saying that they really love this fragrance. It's not quite as intense and rich and complex as Creed's version, but it is still a fantastic fragrance. And even if it isn't quite as good, people are willing to give it a little bit of latitude because the price is so attractive. This one was a surprise for me. I did not expect an Afnan scent to be in the top 10 fragrances of 2025, but there it is. It's here at number 8. The next fragrance is an absolute banger. This is an incredible fragrance. And the reason that I think this isn't higher up the top 10 is because it's not a 2025 fragrance, it's a 2024 fragrance. This could have been higher up the list if it had been released this year. This is the astoundingly good Outlands from Amouage. I do not have a bottle of Outlands, unfortunately, but I do have this very lovely looking travel sprayer. And actually, this fragrance is so strong, you don't need many sprays, and I still have about half of this left. Just in case you didn't know, Outlands comes in a bottle like this. This is Reasons, but same bottle design, just a green label for Outlands. All right, let me try and describe this fragrance to you. This is a very big, bold, very impactful scent. It's spicy, it's got lots of incense, there's florals, there's some rose in this, there's resins, there's oud. It is deep, it smells complex, although never too busy. It's quite a smooth blend, but this is a powerhouse. I think Outlands is an absolute masterpiece from perfumer Cecile Zarocki, an incredible fragrance. And when this little travel sprayer has run down, I'm gonna have to get myself a bottle. It is that good. Well deserving of a place in the top 10. All right, we are now going from an absolute powerhouse masterpiece fragrance, potentially one of the best fragrances ever created, to a scent, let's just be polite about this and say, yeah, it's not on the same level, far from it. From YSL, this is Myself EDP. Black pepper, orange blossom, vanilla, amber, woody notes, and patchouli. Kind of surprised that this one is in the list because it is very enjoyable. It's a pleasant fragrance. Most of the world's population would enjoy this scent, but whilst it is enjoyable, I think it's quite a functional sort of enjoyable. It's one of those fragrances that if you're not really that into fragrances, if you don't want to think about wearing a fragrance that much, you can put something like this on and it kind of gets the job done. It smells fine, it's nice, it's pleasant. Bit spicy, bit fruity, bit of vanilla, kind of smells a bit generic to me, a little bit of a mush of generic designer fragrance notes. It's kind of pleasant and nice, but when we're comparing it to a fragrance of the caliber of Amouage Outlands, for this to be higher in the top 10 to Outlands, kind of blows my mind a little bit. If you like easy to wear fragrances, if you don't want anything that is that impactful, that you don't have to think about too much, this one might do the job. To me, it doesn't really smell that different to a nice deodorant, so I personally wouldn't have included it in this top 10. Smack bang in the middle of the list now. At number 5, we have a fragrance that I really love. In fact, I love the whole line of this from Guerlain. This is L'Homme Ideal Parfum. The notes are amaretto, leather, musk, and patchouli. The L'Homme Ideal line has this creamy, sweet, almondy scent profile. Kind of smells a little bit like an amaretto sours, and this one does smell like that. It's maybe a little richer, slightly denser, slightly heavier. This is a parfum version of that, so that all makes sense. The leather in here doesn't smell that leathery to me, but it could be just providing a little bit of heft and weight to the scent, a bit of extra gravitas, a little bit of extra attitude. Really good fragrance. I love wearing this, and I'll be honest, I kind of forgot that I had this because there have been so many fragrance releases this year. They've been coming thick and fast. This kind of got put on a shelf to one side, but having seen this list, it's thankfully reminded me that I have this. So going forward over the next few months, I do intend to wear this a lot more because I love it and I think it is deserving of a place in the top 10. Dior have done some fragrance releases in the last couple of years that have been a little bit controversial. They have certainly sparked some debate. Sauvage Eau Forte, yeah. Also, Dior Homme Parfum, yeah. But they have also released a fragrance that is consistently in these top 10 awards lists. This is Dior Homme Intense. You'll notice that this is the original version of Dior Homme Intense, not the rebranded 2025 version. This one is irisy, it's chocolatey, it's powdery, it's a masterpiece. Is the new 2025 version a masterpiece also? From what I can gather from reading some fragrantica comments, because I haven't smelled it myself yet, is that it smells very similar to the original formulation of Dior Homme Intense, but it's maybe not quite as good. It's maybe not quite as rich. I think it's lightened up a little bit, maybe in the same way that they did with Dior Homme Parfum, but to a lesser degree, because with that one, I think they changed the formula completely to make it a more generic, a more mass appealing scent, perhaps a more youthful fragrance. I don't think they've made big changes like that with this one, but the general consensus seems to be that there are some small changes. So I am very interested to get out there and get my nose on the new Dior Homme Intense for 2025 to see how it compares to this. I'll update you on that one. The fragrance at number 3 is not Parfum de Marly's Alter. It is actually Liquid Brun from French Avenue. Liquid Brun, though, is a dupe of the Marly. The notes are cinnamon, orange blossom, cardamom, vanilla, praline, gaiac wood and musk. Alter is one of the best fragrance releases of the last few years. As soon as I smelled it, it went right into my top 5 of Marly fragrances, possibly my top 3 because of all of the Parfum de Marly's that I own. This is the one in the last year or so I've been wearing the most. It is a creamy, indulgent, addictive praline fragrance. It's got a little bit of a sweet, smoky woods there in the background. I love it. Now, Liquid Brun is French Avenue's version of this fragrance. I have smelled it on other people and it does smell pretty much the same as this. And I think most people are in agreement that it generally smells very, very close. I think perhaps if you were to really scrutinize it, it wouldn't have the same quality of ingredients, the same quality of materials. Perhaps Liquid Brun doesn't quite have the same depth or complexity. You're gonna have to pay a little bit more if you want all those things. But if you want something that is probably 90–95% there, then Liquid Brun is the one to get. It is very cheap compared to this. And I think for that reason, like with Afnan's Supremacy Collector's Edition, the price plays a big part in this for people. And if you can get something that smells really good, even if it's not a carbon copy of the one that it's duping, if it smells good enough and the price is low enough, then people are voting for it, and they have done with Liquid Brun. It's a great fragrance. I would probably own it if I didn't own this, but I've got this. I think this is probably just a little bit better, so I do not need Liquid Brun. But maybe you do. If you don't own this, voted 3rd best men's fragrance of 2025. So if you haven't smelled it, I'd give it a sniff. So I've mentioned Afnan's Supremacy Collector's Edition a couple of times now, and I've told you what it's based on. Well, that fragrance from Creed is what's in at number 2. This is Absolu AVENTUS. The easiest way to describe this fragrance to you is it smells very much like the original AVENTUS, but it's a little darker, a little spicier, it's more impactful. I think it's stronger and it's got a bit more attitude. Over the last year or so, I've been wearing this fragrance quite a bit, and I feel like I am reaching for it more than the original AVENTUS. And I have a decent formulation of the original AVENTUS. I think it's 2016, so it's a good one. But I have found myself leaning towards the slightly darker, slightly more complex, sexier, spicy Absolu AVENTUS. I think Creed released a fantastic scent with this, and it doesn't make a massive departure from the original AVENTUS DNA, but I think that's a good thing because that is so good. Why would you want to deviate too much from that? So they've just added a few little extra elements. I think it works, and I think it's a bit better. I feel like my feelings toward this fragrance are being reflected within the wider community. I think certainly in these Fragrantica Awards, the fact that this is so high in the list and the original AVENTUS is not in the top 10 at all. I'm sure it's there, but probably lower down. I think a lot of people are maybe coming around to this being the best current formulation of the AVENTUS DNA that you can currently buy. This is one of my most worn fragrances of 2025. So for me, the fact that this is number 2 in the top 10, deserved. There must be something about Absolu fragrances because the number 1 is also an Absolu. This is a designer though, not a niche fragrance. Boss bottled Absolu. There's incense, leather, patchouli, myrrh, cedarwood, and davana. I've been saying for the last couple of years now that Boss are releasing banger after banger. This was one of them. They're doing something really right at the moment, and the fact that we have now got a Boss bottle fragrance as the public voted number 1 best men's fragrance of 2025, I think reflects that. Boss is easily a designer brand that could just be throwing out slightly boring, generic, but mass appealing fragrance releases. We do see that from a few designer brands, but no, they're not doing that. They're being more creative. Whoever's calling the shots at Boss is doing a great job because they are creating fragrances that, yes, some of them do have a lot of mass appeal. If we look at Bold Citrus that came out recently and the new Beyond, they are very mass appealing, very easy to wear fragrances, but they're not generic and they're not boring. Those two, whilst really nice and very wearable, don't take quite the creative risks that bottled Absolu and bottled Elixir do, but I think those risks really pay off. With releases like this, Boss are managing to walk that really difficult tightrope of being creative but being mass appealing, and I think they've managed it. Yes, this won't appeal to as many people as Beyond or Bold Citrus, but for the people who it does appeal to, they really enjoy it. And I think most people out there in the general public think this is a fantastic fragrance because you've all voted it as #1 best men's fragrance of 2025. Would I have put this at #1? Probably not. I think it's deserving of a place in the top 10 for sure, but there are fragrances, particularly Amouage, Purpose 50 and Decision. I would put both of those two higher, but then they're niche fragrances that aren't going to appeal to as many people as this, so I can see why this has gone higher in the list than them, but that's just my opinion. This is what the public, this is what Fragrantica readers have voted as the best men's fragrance of the year. I think you'll agree there's some decent fragrances in the list. There are a few that I wouldn't have put in the top 10. Interesting omissions. We didn't have anything from Chanel in here, particularly Bleu de Chanel L'Exclusive. Where's that? I thought that was a great fragrance. I thought that was a really good release of 2025, but maybe it's not been out long enough. Maybe not enough people have worn it to have an opinion on that. Dior Homme Parfum, the controversial Dior Homme Parfum that changed up the formula. I think Dior Homme Parfum Original has been in a few of these lists over the recent years, but this year, it's not there, it's dropped down. Come on Dior, let's just have a release of Dior Homme Parfum Original like you did with the original Dior Homme. Let's have that, because there's a lot of Dior Homme Parfum fanboys that are crying their eyes out there because they can't buy that fragrance anymore. So have that and the new one, and everyone's happy, and you're selling more fragrances. I mean, I think that's a good business strategy, don't you? That is your list for this year's Fragrantica Awards of the best men's fragrance of 2025. What do you think of this list? Do you think it's a good one? How many do you own? I think I clocked about 8 out of these 10, so I'm happy with that. I think I'm doing all right. I think there's some great fragrances, but let me know your opinion. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, drop me a like, I would really appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and if you do all that, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, bye.